Chapter 1. The night they came for her, the storm arrived without warning. Just like everything else that had shattered Celine's life. Rain hammered against the cracked window of the storage room, where she'd been locked for 3 days now. No food. No water except what she could lick from the condensation on the glass. The cold seeped through her thin dress, the same one she'd worn since childhood, patched, faded, and 2 sizes too small. 23 years old. And she still lived like a prisoner in the house that should have been her home. Weak. That's what her mother called her. Worthless. That's what her father spat whenever he looked at her with those cold, disappointed eyes. Celine pressed her forehead against the wall. Her silver hair, the hair they hated, the hair that marked her as different, falling across her face. She'd stopped crying years ago. Tears changed nothing. They never had. The floorboards above her head creaked with heavy footsteps. Voices drifted down, muffled but urgent. Tonight. The Alpha said he'd pay double if we deliver her before dawn. Should have sold her the day she was born. Like we planned, Celine's blood turned to ice. They were going to sell her. Not as a servant she'd already been that her entire life, but to someone. Some Alpha. Some monster in the stories whispered about in the village. The ones people only spoke of behind locked doors. The werewolves. She'd heard the tales since childhood. Creatures that walked as men but hunted as beasts. Packs that ruled the forests beyond the village borders. Enforcing laws that humans didn't understand and punishing those who crossed into their territory. Her parents had always warned her to stay away from the woods. Now she understood why. They'd made a deal. The door flew open, slamming against the wall with a crack that made Celine flinch. Her father stood in the doorway, his face twisted with irritation and something else, greed, maybe, or relief. Her mother hovered behind him, wringing her hands. Get up, her father barked. Someone's coming for you. No. The word slipped out before Celine could stop it. Please, I'll work harder. I won't eat as much. I'd shut your mouth. He grabbed her arm, his fingers digging into her skin hard enough to bruise. You've been nothing but a burden since the moment you were born. Weak, strange, cursed. At least now you'll be worth something. He dragged her through the house she'd cleaned 1,000 times. Past the rooms she wasn't allowed to enter. Down the stairs she'd scrubbed on her hands and knees until they gleamed. Her mother didn't look at her. She never did. Outside, the storm raged. Lightning split the sky, illuminating 3 figures standing at the edge of the property. 2 men, 1 woman, all of them impossibly tall, impossibly still despite the wind that whipped through the trees. And their eyes, even from a distance, Celine could see their eyes. They glowed in the darkness. Gold, fierce, predatory. There she is, her father said, shoving Celine forward. As promised. Though I don't see why the Alpha wants her. She's barely worth the clothes on her back. The woman stepped forward, her movements fluid and precise. She was beautiful in a dangerous way, sharp features, dark hair braided back from her face, and those glowing eyes that seemed to see straight through Celine's skin to the bones beneath. The Alpha doesn't explain his reasons to humans, the woman said, her voice carrying despite the storm. And you would be wise not to question them. She looked at Celine, and something flickered across her face. Surprise. Recognition. What's your name, girl? Celine. Her voice came out as barely a whisper. The woman's eyes widened. One of the men behind her inhaled sharply. Celine. The woman repeated slowly, like she was tasting the word. The moon. It's just a name. Her father snapped. Her mother had foolish ideas when she was born. Thought the silver hair meant something special. It doesn't. She's weak, clumsy, can't even enough. The woman's voice cracked like a whip. We'll take her. The payment. You'll get your blood money. The disgust in her tone was palpable. Though you should know that selling your own child marks you. The pack has a long memory. Her father paled, but held out his hand. One of the men tossed him a heavy pouch. Coins clinked inside. That was it. 23 years of life. bought and sold for a bag of gold. The woman approached Celine, pulling off her cloak. You're soaked. Wear this? Celine stared at her, confused. Kindness wasn't something she understood anymore. Why? Because I told you to. But the woman's voice was gentler now. She draped the cloak around Celine's shoulders. It was warm, impossibly soft, and smelled like pine and night air. Can you walk? One of the men asked. His voice was deep, concerned. Celine nodded, though her legs felt like water. Then we go. The Alpha is waiting. They turned to leave, and Celine cast one last look at the house where she'd grown up. Her parents had already gone inside, counting their money, relieved to finally be rid of her. No goodbye. No hesitation. She was alone. The woman's hand settled on her shoulder, not rough, not cruel, but steady. Walk with us, Celine. Whatever you think is coming, whatever you fear, I promise you, it's not what you imagine. What's going to happen to me? Celine whispered. The woman glanced at her companions, something unspoken passing between them. When she looked back at Celine, her golden eyes were unreadable. That depends on who you truly are, she said, and I don't think even you know the answer to that yet. They walked into the storm, leaving the only home Celine had ever known behind, and in the forest ahead. Something held a sound so primal, so powerful, that it seemed to shake the very earth beneath their feet. Celine's heart pounded. Her new life had begun. Whether it would be her salvation or her doom, she didn't yet know. Chapter 2. The Alpha's terror-drive forest swallowed them whole. Celine had never been beyond the village borders. Her parents had forbidden it, and she'd been too afraid to disobey. Now she understood why the trees here were ancient, their branches weaving together overhead like the ribcage of some enormous beast. Even the storm seemed muted here, as if the forest itself absorbed the violence of the weather. The woman whose name Celine still didn't know led the way with confident strides. The two men flanked them, silent sentries whose eyes never stopped scanning the darkness. How much farther? Celine asked, pulling the borrowed cloak tighter. Her thin shoes squelched in the mud with every step. Not far, the woman replied without turning. We're already within pack territory. Can't you feel it? Celine almost said no, but then she realized she could feel something. A heaviness in the air, a pressure against her skin that had nothing to do with the weather. It felt like being watched by 100 invisible eyes. They know we're here. One of the men murmured. The patrol's been tracking us for the last mile. Good, the woman said. Let them see what we've brought. What? Not who. Celine's stomach twisted. Was that all she was to them? A thing? A transaction? They emerged into a clearing, and Celine's breath caught. A compound sprawled before them, not the ramshackle village she'd come from, but something between a settlement and a fortress. Structures built from stone and timber rose from the earth like they'd grown there naturally. Torches burned despite the rain, their flames never flickering, never dying. And everywhere, there were people. No, not people. Wolves. Some walked onto legs, dressed in clothes that looked both primitive and elegant. Others prowled on four, their massive forms moving through the shadows with predatory grace. And all of them stopped what they were doing to stare at Celine. Is she really? Look at her hair. The prophecy? Silence. The woman's voice cut through the whispers like a blade. Kira, take her to the main hall. The Alpha is waiting. One of the men, Kira, apparently nodded and gestured for Celine to follow. He was younger than she'd initially thought, maybe early 30s, with kind eyes that seemed at odds with his intimidating size. Don't be afraid, he said softly as they walked. I know this must be overwhelming. I don't understand any of this. Celine's voice trembled. Why did they buy me? What do you want from me? Kira's expression grew complicated. It's not my place to explain, but I can tell you this: you're safe here. Safer than you've ever been, whether you believe it or not. They climbed stone steps to the largest structure in the compound. The doors were massive, carved with symbols that seemed to shift and move in the torchlight. Wolves, moons, and something else, a figure with outstretched arms, crowned in silver light. The doors opened before they reached them. Inside, the hall was breathtaking. A fire roared in a hearth large enough to stand in. Furs covered the floors. Weapons lined the walls, not decorative, but well-used and deadly. And at the far end, seated in a chair that could only be called a throne, was him. Celine's feet froze. She'd expected a monster, some scarred, brutal creature that ruled through fear. Instead, she found a man who looked like he'd been carved from midnight itself. He was younger than she'd imagined, and Alpha would be perhaps 30, perhaps older. It was impossible to tell. Dark hair fell to his shoulders, partially obscuring a face that was all sharp angles and fierce beauty. His eyes, when they lifted to meet hers, were not gold like the others. They were silver, the same impossible silver as her own hair. "Leave us," he said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to resonate in Celine's chest. "Alpha Theron," Kira began. "Leave us." The command was absolute. Kira and the others filed out, closing the massive doors behind them with a finality that made Celine's heart race. She was alone with the Alpha. Theron rose from his seat, and Celine had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. He was massive, not just tall, but built like he could tear a tree from the ground with his bare hands. Every movement was controlled, precise, dangerous. He circled her slowly, studying her like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. "They told me you were weak," he finally said. "Fragile. Human." "I am human," Celine whispered. "Are you?" He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "Tell me, Celine, do you dream?" The question caught her off guard. Everyone dreams. "Not like you do." His silver eyes seemed to look through her, past her, into places she kept hidden even from herself. "Do you dream of running through forests you've never seen? Of a sky full of stars that speak your name? Of a light so bright it burns away all darkness?" Celine's breath hitched. How did he know? She'd never told anyone about those dreams, the ones that left her gasping awake, her skin burning, her body aching with a longing she couldn't name. "I don't know what you're talking about," she lied. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You're a terrible liar." He reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and touched a strand of her silver hair. His fingers were gentle despite their obvious strength. "This isn't a human trait," he murmured. "This color, it only appears in one bloodline. A bloodline everyone thought had died out centuries ago. My mother said it was just. Your mother knows nothing." The words were harsh, but his tone held no cruelty. "The humans who raised you, who sold you like livestock, they found you abandoned as an infant. They didn't birth you. They had no idea what they possessed." Celine's world tilted. "That's not true, isn't it?" Theron's gaze held hers. "Deep down, didn't you always know you didn't belong with them? That you were different in ways that terrified them?" "Yes. God, yes." But admitting it felt like losing the last piece of identity she had. "Why am I here?" she asked instead. "What do you want from me?" Theron was quiet for a long moment. Then he stepped back, giving her space, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made her shiver. 3 months ago, the moon herself spoke to me in a vision. She told me to find the girl with silver hair, the one hidden among humans. She told me that without you, my all packs would fall to the darkness that's coming. That's insane, is it? He gestured to the windows, where the storm had finally begun to clear. Through the glass, Celine could see the full moon emerging from behind the clouds, and it was bleeding. Dark red streaks ran across its surface like wounds, pulsing with an unnatural light. "The moon is dying, Celine," Theron said quietly, "and you're the only one who can save her." Chapter 3, Fractured Truth. Celine couldn't breathe. The bleeding moon hung in the sky like an accusation, and every word Theron had spoken echoed in her mind until she thought her skull might crack open. From the pressure, "You're wrong. She stumbled backward, shaking her head. I'm nobody. I can't even. I'm weak. Everyone's always said so. They were fools. Theron's voice was steady, certain. Weakness and suppression are not the same thing. Suppression? Celine pressed her hands to her temples. What are you talking about? He moved closer, but slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. Tell me something. Have you ever been injured? Truly injured, broken bones, deep cuts, anything that should have taken weeks to heal? Celine opened her mouth to say yes, but the words died on her tongue. She thought back to all the times her father had struck her, all the times she'd fallen, all the times she should have borne scars. But her skin was unmarked. Even the bruises from tonight were already fading. That's just. And the dreams. Theron continued, his silver eyes never leaving hers. The ones where you feel power coursing through your veins like liquid moonlight. Where you feel infinite. Those aren't dreams, Celine. They're memories. Memories of what? Her voice broke. Of who you were before they took it from you. Theron turned toward a table where a silver basin filled with water sat waiting. He passed his hand over it, and the water began to glow with an otherworldly light. Come here, he said softly. Let me show you. Every instinct screamed at Celine to run, but something deeper, something ancient and buried pulled her forward. Her feet moved without conscious thought until she stood beside him, staring down into the glowing water. Look, Theron whispered. The water's surface rippled, and images began to form. A woman with silver hair and eyes like starlight, standing on a mountaintop with her arms raised to the sky. Light poured from her in waves, and below her, hundreds of wolves, both human and beast, bowed in reverence. The first moon priestess. Theron explained, 3,000 years ago, when shifters and humans lived in harmony. She was chosen by the moon goddess herself to be a bridge between our worlds. She could heal with a touch, command the tide, speak to the wolves in their own language. The image shifted. A baby with silver hair, wrapped in moonlight, placed in a basket by desperate hands. But power always attracts enemies. A dark warlock named Malakar sought to steal her abilities, to corrupt the moon's blessing for his own purposes. The priestess line went into hiding, scattering across the world, suppressing their power to stay safe. Another shift. The same baby, older now, maybe 10 years old, screaming as dark symbols were carved into the air around her. Her silver hair dimmed. Her eyes, once bright with power, became ordinary brown. Binding spells, Theron said, his jaw tight. Cruel, ancient magic designed to lock away supernatural abilities. Someone cast this on you when you were young. Someone who wanted to ensure you'd never know what you were. Celine watched, horror and recognition warring in her chest. She remembered this, not clearly, but in fragments, Spain, burning, a voice telling her to forget, forget, forget. The humans who raised you, Theron continued, they must have found you after the binding. They sensed something different about you, something that scared them. So they treated you as cursed rather than blessed. The water went dark. Celine gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. Why are you telling me this? She demanded. Even if it's true, even if I'm this priestess or whatever, I can't do anything. I don't have power. I'm exactly what they always said I was. No. Theron's hand covered hers on the table's edge. His touch was warm, grounding. You're exactly what the moon has been waiting for. The binding spell didn't destroy your power, Celine. It buried it. And now that you're here, in Pact territory, surrounded by the very magic that flows through your bloodline, it's starting to wake up. As if in response to his words, Celine felt something stir deep in her chest. A warmth that had nothing to do with the fire in the hearth. It unfurled slowly, tentatively, like a flower opening to the sun after a long winter. And it hurt. She gasped, pulling away from Theron, wrapping her arms around herself as the sensation intensified. It felt like her bones were reshaping, like her blood was turning to liquid light, like every cell in her body was remembering something it had been forced to forget. What's happening? She choked out. Theron was at her side instantly, his hands on her shoulders, steadying her. The binding is breaking. Your body is trying to reclaim what was taken. But it's been suppressed for so long this is going to hurt. I can't. Yes, you can. His voice was fierce now, commanding. You're stronger than you know, Celine. Stronger than they ever let you believe. Breathe through it. Let it come. She wanted to fight it, to push it back down where it had lived for 23 years. But Theron's hands were firm on her shoulders, his silver eyes locked with hers. And something about his presence made her feel safe enough to surrender Dot, so she did. The pain crested like a wave, and then dashlight dotted exploded from her skin in a brilliant silver radiance that filled the entire hall. Celine heard shouting from outside, felt Theron's sharp intake of breath, but she couldn't stop it. The light poured out of her like it had been dammed up for decades, desperate for release. When it finally faded, Celine collapsed. Theron caught her before she hit the ground, cradling her against his chest with a gentleness that seemed impossible from someone so powerful. "I've got you," he murmured. "I've got you." Celine looked up at him, her vision swimming. What was that? A rare smile crossed Theron's face, not mocking, not cold, but genuinely odd. That was the moon recognizing her daughter. That was the first crack in a prison that's held you captive your entire life. He carried her to the firs by the fire and laid her down carefully, then sat beside her, his hand resting protectively on her shoulder. "Rest now," he said. "Tomorrow, your real training begins. Tomorrow, we start teaching you how to save the moon, and if I fail..." Celine whispered, her eyes already drifting closed. Theron's expression grew solemn. "Then we all fall into darkness. Every shifter, every pack, every creature that draws power from the moon. We'll lose ourselves to the beast within, and there will be no coming back." His hand moved from her shoulder to her hair, his fingers threading through the silver strands with unexpected tenderness. "But you won't fail," he said quietly, more to himself than to her. "The moon doesn't make mistakes, and neither do I." As Celine slipped into sleep, she felt something she'd never experienced before in her entire broken, brutal life. She felt chosen. She felt like she mattered. And in the morning, when she woke to find Theron still sitting guard beside her, his silver eyes watching the door like he'd fight anyone who tried to harm her, she would begin to feel something even more dangerous. She would begin to feel like she belonged. Chapter 4. The wolf within Celine woke to golden sunlight streaming through windows she didn't remember seeing the night before. For a moment, she forgot where she was, forgot everything that had happened. Then the memories crashed back like a tidal wave. The bleeding moon, the light exploding from her skin, Theron's silver eyes watching her with something between reverence and hunger. She sat up slowly, her body aching in strange ways. Not pain, exactly, but the soreness that came after using muscles that had been dormant too long. Her fingers tingled with residual energy. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called, her voice rough with sleep. The door opened to reveal a woman around Celine's age, carrying a tray of food. She had warm brown skin, dark curls pulled back in a practical braid, and eyes that shifted from brown to amber as she smiled. "Good morning," she said cheerfully. "I'm Mira. The Alpha asked me to bring you breakfast and help you get settled." Celine's stomach growled at the smell of fresh bread and honey. When was the last time she'd eaten? 2 days ago. 3. Mira set the tray on a small table and watched with satisfaction as Celine devoured the food. Slowly, she cautioned, "Your body's been through a lot. The awakening takes a toll." "You know about that?" Celine asked between bites. "Everyone knows. The entire pack felt it when your power stirred last night." Mira's expression grew serious. "Some are frightened, some are hopeful, and some," she hesitated, "some are angry that a human was brought into pack territory." "I'm not." Celine stopped. Was she even human anymore? She didn't know what she was. "You're something more," Mira said gently, reading her thoughts. "And that terrifies people who like their world ordered and predictable." But the alpha believes in you. That's enough for most of us. What about you? Celine asked. What do you believe? Mira considered this, her amber eyes thoughtful. I believe the moon doesn't make mistakes. And I believe Theron would die before he let harm come to you. So I'm reserving judgment and offering friendship instead. Something warm bloomed in Celine's chest. Friendship. When was the last time anyone had offered her that? I'd like that, she whispered. Mira's smile widened. Good. Now finish eating. The alpha wants to begin your training at noon, which gives us just enough time to get you properly dressed. An hour later, Celine stood in front of a mirror, barely recognizing herself. Gone was the threadbare dress and the haunted, hollow look. Mira had given her clothes that actually fits off leather pants, a tunic that moved with her body, and boots that felt like they'd been made for her feet. Her silver hair, freshly washed, fell in waves past her shoulders. She looked strong, capable, almost dangerous. Perfect, Mira declared. Now you look like someone who could save the world. They left the room, which Celine learned was in the Alpha's personal wing. Another fact that made her pulse quicken, and walked through the compound. In daylight, it was even more impressive. Children played in the courtyards, their laughter mixing with the sounds of training warriors and working craftsmen. Everyone seemed to have a purpose, a place, and everyone stopped to stare at Celine. They're not used to seeing silver hair, Mira explained quietly. It's been generations since anyone bearing the priestess mark walked among us. They reached a clearing at the edge of the compound, where Theron waited. He stood with his back to them, shirtless, his body a map of scars and muscle. He moved through a series of fighting forms, fluid, deadly, mesmerizing. Celine's mouth went dry. Like what you see? Mira whispered teasingly. Celine's cheeks burned. I don't. It's okay. Every unmated female in the pack looks at him like that. And most of the mated ones too, if we're being honest. Mira squeezed her arm. I'll leave you to it. Good luck. Theron turned as Mira departed, his silver eyes finding Celine immediately. Something flickered across his face, approval. Maybe. Or something more primal before his expression smoothed into the mask of authority. She was beginning to recognize. You look better, he said, reaching for his shirt. Don't. The word escaped before Celine could stop it. Heat flooded her face. I mean, if you're going to train, you don't need to. A slow smile curved Theron's lips. Noted. He approached her, and Celine was struck again by his sheer size. He towered over her, broad and powerful. Yet his movements held a grace that made her think of water flowing over stones. How do you feel? He asked, sore, confused, scared. She met his eyes. Like I'm standing on the edge of a cliff and someone's about to push me off. Good. At her surprised look, he continued, fear means you understand the gravity of what's coming. Overconfidence would be dangerous right now. He gestured for her to follow him deeper into the clearing. Your power last night was raw, uncontrolled, like a dam breaking. Today, we start teaching you control. We teach you to channel the moon's gift rather than let it overwhelm you. How do we do that? Theron stopped, turning to face her fully. By connecting you to what you are. By helping you understand the bond between the moon, the wolves, and the priestess line that bridges them both. He held out his hand. Do you trust me? Celine looked at his outstretched palm. This man had bought her like property, dragged her into a world she didn't understand, told her she had to save a dying goddess or doom an entire species. She should say no, should demand answers, demand safety, demand proof. But when she looked into his silver eyes that matched her own in that impossible way, she felt that stirring again, that sense of rightness that terrified her more than anything else. I don't know. She answered honestly, but I'm willing to try. His fingers closed around hers, warm and rough and steady. That's all I ask. The moment their skin touched, Celine felt it, a surge of energy that flowed between them like a current. Not painful like last night, but intense, electric. She gasped, and Theron's grip tightened. You feel it, he murmured. The connection. What is it? Pack bonds work through the alpha, Theron explained, his voice lower now, intimate. Every member of my pack is connected to me through threads of power. But this, his thumb traced across her knuckles. This is different, deeper. Why? His jaw tightened. For a moment, Celine thought he wouldn't answer. Then he took a breath, and when he spoke, his words were carefully controlled. Because the moon chose you, and I am her most devoted servant. What affects you affects me. Your pain is my pain. Your power. He paused. Your power calls to the wolf in me in ways I don't fully understand yet. Celine's heart hammered. Is that dangerous? Probably. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. But since when has danger ever stopped fate? He released her hand, though Celine could still feel the phantom warmth of his touch. Close your eyes, he instructed. I'm going to shift. Don't be afraid. Shift? Into what I truly am. Before Celine could respond, the air around Theron began to shimmer. She watched, transfixed, as his body blurred and reformed. Bones cracked and reshaped. Skin gave way to fur. And where a man had stood, a massive wolf now sat. But he wasn't like the wolves she'd seen prowling the compound last night. He was bigger, nearly the size of a horse, with fur as black as midnight except for one striking detail dot his eyes. Still silver, still completely, unmistakably Theron. The wolf padded toward her, each step deliberate, measured, giving her time to run if she wanted to. Celine didn't run instead. She dropped to her knees in the grass and reached out with trembling fingers. Theron, the wolf's nose touched her palm, and the connection flared again stronger now, more insistent. Images flashed through Celine's mind, forests at midnight. The thrill of the hunt, the weight of leadership, the loneliness of power, and underneath it all, a longing so deep it made her chest ache. His loneliness, his burden, his desperate hope that she was the answer to prayers he'd stopped believing would be heard. Tears streamed down Celine's face. I can feel you, she whispered. Everything you are, everything you carry. The wolf pressed closer, his massive head nudging against her shoulder, and Celine wrapped her arms around him, burying her face in his fur, letting herself feel the truth she'd been avoiding. She wasn't just here to save the moon. She was here to save him too. Chapter 5. Shadow and flame. For 3 days, Celine trained. Theron pushed her relentlessly, teaching her to reach for the power buried inside her, to shape it, control it, bend it to her will. Each session left her exhausted, trembling, and more aware of the impossible task ahead. But it also left her closer to him. She learned that Theron took his coffee black and bitter, that he rarely slept more than a few hours, that he carried the weight of 400 pack members on his shoulders like Atlas, holding up the sky. She learned that his scars weren't just from battles somewhere, from pack challenges, rituals where younger wolves tested his right to lead. Don't they trust you? She'd asked on the second day, tracing a jagged line across his shoulder blade without thinking. Theron had gone very still under her touch. Trust isn't given freely in our world. It's earned again and again, in blood. Now, on the 4th morning, Celine stood in the center of the training clearing with her eyes closed, feeling the pulse of power in her veins. It was easier to reach now, though it still frightened her with its intensity. Good, Theron said from somewhere to her left. Now, without opening your eyes, tell me where I am. Celine focused on the bond between them, that strange, thrumming connection that had only grown stronger. She could feel him like a compass point, steady and unwavering. 8 feet to my left, she said, moving closer. Where are the others? She expanded her awareness. Mira stood at the clearing's edge, her energy bright and warm. Kira was in the trees, watching protectively, and their 3 others, their energy sharp and cold. Celine's eyes snapped open. Something's wrong. Theron was already moving, shifting into his wolf form in a blur of shadow and power. The three figures emerged from the forest, 2 men and a woman, all of them radiating hostility. "Alpha," the woman said, her voice dripping with contempt. "We need to talk about your pet." Theron's growl was a physical thing, vibrating through the ground. He shifted back, standing between Celine and the newcomers with lethal intent clear in every line of his body. "Careful, Vera," he said softly. "You're addressing your alpha and a guest under my protection." Vera was beautiful in a harsh way, all sharp edges and cold eyes. "Guest? Is that what we're calling her? The human you bought like a trinket while the pack suffers?" "The pack suffers because the moon is dying," Theron countered. "Celine is our best chance. Celine is a distraction." One of the men spat. "You've spent every waking moment with her while pack business goes unattended. Disputes go unresolved. And all for what? Some prophecy from your fevered dreams?" Celine felt heat rising in her chest, anger, but also shame. Were they right? Had she been taking Theron away from his responsibilities? "Watch your tongue, Marcus," Theron warned, "or you'll lose it." "We're not the only ones who feel this way," Vera pressed. "Half the pack questions your judgment. They wonder if you've been compromised. If she's cast some spell on you, enough." Theron's voice cracked like a whip. "You dare challenge me? Here, now." The tension crystallized into something dangerous. Celine recognized it instinctively. This was how violence began. This was the moment before blood was shed. "Stop," she said, stepping forward. "Please." Theron shot her a sharp look. "Celine, they're right." The words tasted like ash, but she forced them out. "I have been taking your time, your attention. Maybe I should." "You should nothing," Theron growled. "These three don't speak for the pack. They speak for themselves and their own ambitions." Vera's eyes flashed gold. "You want to make this a challenge, Alpha? Fine. Let her prove she's worth your protection. Let her show us this great power everyone whispers about. She's not a performing animal for your entertainment." "Then what is she?" Marcus demanded. "You claim she's the Moon Priestess reborn, but we've seen nothing but parlor tricks. Light shows and glowing hands. Meanwhile, the bleeding moon grows worse every night. And you do nothing except coddle a weak human girl who, the rage that tore through Celine, was unlike anything she'd ever felt. It wasn't just anger, it was righteous fury, ancient and terrible. Her vision went white, and she felt power explode from her core like a supernova. Silver light erupted from her skin, so bright that everyone staggered back. The ground beneath her feet cracked, spiderwebbing outward. And above them, the sky itself seemed to respond, clouds parting, sunlight turning to moonlight. And for one impossible moment, Celine felt the moon itself looking through her eyes. Enough. Her voice wasn't her own. It resonated with power, with authority older than stone. When she opened her eyes, she knew they were glowing pure silver. Vera, Marcus, and the third wolf had dropped to their knees, their heads bowed, their bodies trembling with instinctive submission. Even Mira and Kira had shifted into wolf form, lowering themselves in reverence. Only Theron remained standing, his silver eyes wide with something between shock and awe. Celine looked at Vera. "You question my worth? The moon herself has marked me. I carry the blood of the first priestess, the bridge between your world and the divine. I am not here for your approval." She turned her gaze to Marcus. "You speak of the Alpha's distraction? He is preparing me to save you all. Every moment he spends teaching me is a moment invested in your survival. Show some gratitude." The power pulsed through her, intoxicating and terrifying. She could feel the wolves' life forces, could sense their fear and confusion. And deeper she could feel the moon herself, wounded and fading, reaching out to her like a mother to a lost child. Then, as suddenly as it had come, the power retreated. Celine collapsed, but Theron caught her before she hit the ground, cradling her against his chest. "Everyone leave," he commanded. Now, they scattered like leaves in a storm. Within seconds, the clearing was empty except for Theron and Celine. I'm sorry, she whispered, shaking violently. I didn't mean to, I couldn't control. SHH. Theron carried her to the shade of a massive oak and sat with her in his lap, his arms wrapped protectively round her. You have nothing to apologize for. That was, Celine, that was incredible. I scared them. You reminded them what you are. His hand stroked through her hair, soothing. What we've forgotten in our arrogance and doubt. The priestess isn't just powerful, Celine. She's sacred. Celine buried her face against his chest, breathing in his sempine and earth and something uniquely him. I don't know how to be sacred. I don't know how to be anything but broken. Theron's arms tightened. You're not broken. You never were. He tilted her face up, forcing her to meet his eyes. They broke your cage, but you were never the prisoner they tried to make you. You are fire and moonlight and fierce, terrible beauty. And he stopped, his jaw clenching. You what? Celine whispered. I am trying very hard to remember that you're under my protection. He said roughly, that you're vulnerable, that I have no right to. He cut himself off with a frustrated growl. You're making this very difficult. Making what difficult? His gaze dropped to her lips. Keeping my distance. Staying objective. Remembering that I'm your teacher and your alpha. Not. He closed his eyes. Not what I want to be. Celine's heart thundered. And what do you want to be? When Theron opened his eyes, the hunger in them made her breath catch. Yours? The word hung between them, heavy with promise and danger. Celine knew she should pull away, should maintain some distance, should protect what remained of her battered heart. Instead, she reached up and touched his face. Then be mine, she whispered, and the last of Theron's control shattered. Chapter 6. The truth between Sulce Theron's lips crashed against hers with a hunger that stole her breath. His hand tangled in her silver hair, the other splaying across her lower back, pulling her impossibly closer. Celine gasped against his mouth, and he deepened the kiss, claiming her with a possessiveness that should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like coming home. Power surged between them, not violent like before, but electric, intoxicating. Celine could feel Theron's heartbeat thundering against her palm, could taste the barely restrained wildness in him, the wolf that lived just beneath his skin. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Theron pressed his forehead to hers. I shouldn't have done that, he rasped. Don't. Celine's fingers curled into his shirt. Don't you dare apologize. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. Stop protecting me from the truth. I'm stronger than you think. Theron's laugh was bitter. You're stronger than I thought. Stronger than anyone has been in centuries. His thumb traced her jaw. But that doesn't change what I am. What I've done. What have you done? He stood abruptly, setting her gently on her feet before pacing away. His hands clenched into fists, and Celine could see the internal war raging behind his silver eyes. There's something I haven't told you, he finally said, about why I knew to look for you, about why the moon spoke to me specifically. Celine's stomach tightened. I'm listening. Theron turned to face her, and the vulnerability in his expression made her chest ache. 50 years ago, when I was barely more than a boy, my father, the Alpha before me, made a terrible mistake. He allowed a warlock named Cassius into our territory. Cassius promised to strengthen our pack, to make us invincible. What happened? He lied. Theron's voice went hollow. He didn't want to strengthen us. He wanted to corrupt us, to steal the pack's connection to the moon and replace it with dark magic. My father realized too late what was happening and tried to stop him. Cassius killed him, killed my mother, killed 17 pack members before I finally managed to drive him out. Celine moved closer. Theron, I was 20 years old and suddenly responsible for 300 terrified, traumatized wolves. And the worst part? His hands shook. Cassius didn't just kill my family. Before he died, my father told me that Cassius had been searching for something. Someone. A girl with silver hair who could amplify his dark magic 1,000-fold. The world tilted. Me? I didn't know for sure. But the description matched the old stories about the priestess line. So I spent years hunting down every reference, every legend, every whisper of silver-haired women born with the moon's blessing. His gaze locked with hers. And 3 months ago, the moon finally answered my prayers. She showed me your face, told me where to find you before Cassius did. Wait, Celine's mind raced. You think he's still alive? Still searching? I know he is. Theron pulled a folded parchment from his pocket and handed it to her. This arrived 2 days ago. Celine unfolded it with trembling fingers. The message was written in elegant script that made her skin crawl. I know you have her, Alpha, the silver-haired abomination who should have been mine. Return her to me, or I will come take her along with everything you love. You have until the next full moon. See, that's for days from now, Celine whispered. I know. Theron's jaw clenched. I should have told you sooner. Should have warned you? But I was afraid. He cut himself off. Afraid of what? That you'd run. That you'd decide saving yourself was more important than saving us. His eyes met hers. Raw and honest. And I wouldn't have blamed you. I bought you from people who abused you. Dragged you into a war you never asked for. And now I'm telling you there's a madman who wants to use you for unspeakable darkness. You have every right to hate me. Celine stared at him this powerful. Feared Alpha who looked at her like she held his entire world in her hands. And suddenly, everything made sense. The intensity of his training. The protectiveness. The desperate hunger in his kiss. He wasn't just trying to save the moon. He was trying to save her. From a fate he'd failed to prevent once before. I don't hate you, she said quietly. Theron's expression crumbled. Celine, I'm angry you didn't tell me sooner. I'm terrified of what's coming. But I don't hate you. She crossed the distance between them, taking his face in her hands. You saved me, Theron. Maybe not the way heroes do in stories, but you pulled me out of a life that was slowly killing me. You gave me purpose, power, a chance to be more than what they said I was. You were always more. He insisted fiercely. They were just too blind to see it. Maybe. Celine smiled sadly. But you saw it. You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. So no, I'm not going to run. I'm not going to let some twisted warlock turn me into a weapon. I'm going to learn to control this power. And I'm going to use it to protect the people She stopped, her breath catching. The people you what? Theron's hands covered hers, his silver eyes searching. The people I'm starting to love. She wanted to say, you and Mira and Kira and this strange, beautiful pack that's shown me more kindness in 4 days than I received in 23 years. But the words felt too big, too dangerous. So instead she said, the people who deserve protecting. Theron's expression suggested he heard what she didn't say anyway. He turned his head, pressing a kiss to her palm. You're remarkable? I'm terrified. So am I. The admission seemed to cost him. Cassius is powerful, Celine. More powerful than anything you've faced. And if he gets his hands on you, he won't. Celine's voice was stronger than she felt. You're going to teach me everything you know. I'm going to unlock every bit of power buried inside me. And when he comes, if he comes, we'll be ready. We? You think I'm facing this alone? She raised an eyebrow. You kissed me, Theron. In my world, that means something. It means you're stuck with me now. A genuine smile broke across his face, the first real one she'd seen. It transformed him from severe and intimidating to breathtakingly beautiful. Stuck with you, he repeated. I can think of worse fates. He pulled her back into his arms, and this time the kiss was different. Not desperate or hungry, but tender. A promise. A vow. When they finally separated, the sun had shifted toward evening. Theron brushed a strand of silver hair from her face. We start advanced training tomorrow, he said. Combat, defensive magic, everything I can teach you in 4 days. It won't be easy. Nothing worth doing ever is. Celine straightened her shoulders. I'm ready. Good. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. Because there's one more thing you need to know. What? Theron's expression grew solemn. The reason my connection to you is so strong. The reason I could feel you across hundreds of miles, knew where to find you when no one else could. He paused. It's not just because I'm the alpha and you're the priestess. Celine's heart hammered. Then what is it? In wolf culture, there's a phenomenon called true mates. Two souls that are bound across lifetimes, destined to find each other no matter the odds. It happens maybe once in 1,000 years, and when it does, the bond is absolute. Unbreakable. The air between them seemed to crystallize. Are you saying? I'm saying the moment I saw your face in the moon's vision, something inside me recognized you. Not as a priestess, not as a weapon or a tool. His silver eyes burned into hers. As mine, as the other half of my soul that I've been searching for my entire life without even knowing it. Celine couldn't breathe. That's impossible, is it? Theron's smile was sad. You feel it too. I know you do. That pull between us that has nothing to do with magic or prophecy and everything to do with fate. He was right. God help her. He was right. From the moment she'd looked into his eyes, she'd felt that sense of recognition, of belonging, of home. What does this mean? She whispered. It means, Theron said softly, that I will burn the world to ashes before I let Cassius take you from me. It means I will stand between you and every threat that comes. It means, his voice broke. It means you're not just my responsibility, Celine. You're my everything. And standing there in the fading light, with danger looming and destiny pressing down on them, Celine finally understood the truth. She wasn't just here to save the moon. She was here to save him, to be saved by him, and to forge a love strong enough to survive whatever darkness was coming for them both. Chapter 7. Blood and moonlight training was brutal. For 2 days straight, Theron pushed Celine past every limit she thought she had. Combat training left her bruised and aching. Magical exercises drained her until she could barely stand. But through it all, she felt herself growing stronger not just physically, but in ways that defied explanation. Her power was waking up fully now, and it was terrifying. Again, Theron commanded, circling her in the training ring. Sweat dripped down his bare chest despite the cool morning air. Feel the wolves around you. Connect to their energy. Celine closed her eyes, reaching out with senses she was still learning to trust. She could feel them pack members watching from the edges, their life forces like flames in the darkness. Mira's warm and steady, Kira's protective and fierce, and Theron's a blazing inferno that called to something primal inside her. I feel them. She whispered. Good. Now, imagine you could give them strength. Channel the moon's power through yourself and into them. Celine focused, pulling energy from the well inside her chest. Silver light began to emanate from her skin, soft at first, then brighter. She imagined it flowing outward like water, reaching for the wolves she could sense. The moment the connection formed, she gasped. She could feel everything. Every heartbeat, every breath, every emotion. The pack's collective consciousness opened to her like a door. She'd been standing in front of her entire life, without knowing how to enter, and they could feel her too. Priestess, a dozen voices whispered in her mind. Moon-blessed, sacred. Then, from Theron, my mate, my heart. Celine's eyes flew open, the connection shattering. She stumbled, and Theron caught her instantly, his arms a familiar anchor. I heard you, she breathed. In my mind, I heard all of you. The pack bond, Theron explained, steadying her. It flows through the alpha, but the priestess can access it directly, can strengthen it, heal it, or in times of great need command it. Command it. His expression grew serious. If Cassius attacks, you may need to. The pack will follow my orders unto death. But your power could be the difference between victory and massacre. The weight of that responsibility pressed down on Celine's shoulders. What if I'm not ready? You will be. Theron's hand cupped her face. I have faith in you, even though I've only known about any of this for a week, especially because of that. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You've accomplished in days what should have taken months. Your power isn't just returning. Celine, it's evolving. Before she could respond, a commotion erupted at the compound's entrance. Wolves shifted and snarled, voices rising in alarm. Theron's entire body went rigid. Stay behind me. They ran toward the disturbance, Theron shifting mid-stride into his massive black wolf. When they reached the gates, Celine's blood went cold. A man stood there or something that had once been a man. His skin was too pale, his eyes too dark, and the air around him seemed to writhe with corruption. Behind him, a dozen twisted creatures that might have once been wolves now looked like nightmares made flesh. Cassius, Theron growled, shifting back to human form. The warlock smiled, revealing teeth that were just slightly too sharp. Alpha. How predictable. Building walls and playing soldier. Did you really think you could hide her from me? His gaze found Celine, and she felt something oily and wrong slide across her skin. There you are, Cassius purred. Even more beautiful than the prophecies promised. That silver hair, those eyes, you're perfect. Stay away from her, Theron snarled, positioning himself between them. Or what? You'll fight me. We both know how that ended last time. Cassius's smile widened. Your father died screaming, begging me to spare your mother. I didn't. Of course. Her blood was necessary for the ritual. Theron's control wavered. Celine could feel his rage through their bond, could sense how close he was to losing himself to the wolf's fury. She stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. Don't. That's what he wants. He wants you unbalanced. Theron's muscles were iron beneath her palm, but he held himself in check. You came early, Celine said, proud when her voice didn't shake. The full moon isn't for 2 more days. I grew impatient. Cassius tilted his head, studying her like a fascinating insect. Besides, I wanted to make you an offer before things get messy. I'm not interested in anything you have to say, not even if it means saving all these wolves you've grown so fond of. He gestured to the pack gathered behind them. I don't need them, Celine. I only need you. Come with me willingly, and I'll leave this place standing. Refuse, and I'll paint these woods red with their blood. She's not going anywhere with you, Theron said, his voice deadly calm. Cassius laughed. Still the noble protector? Tell me, Alpha, does she know the real reason you brought her here? Does she know about the ritual? Celine felt Theron tense. What is he talking about? Nothing, Theron said quickly. He's trying to divide us. Oh, it's not nothing. Cassius's eyes gleamed with malicious delight. You see, the prophecy about the moon priestess doesn't just say she'll save the wolves. It says she'll do so through sacrifice. Her life force, channeled through the Alpha's bond, will heal the moon and destroy her in the process. The world tilted. Celine looked at Theron, searching his face. Is that true? Theron's silence was answer enough. You knew. Her voice cracked. This whole time, you knew saving the moon would kill me. I was going to find another way, Theron said desperately. I wasn't going to let it happen. I swear. That's why you've been training her so hard, Cassius continued cheerfully, trying to make her strong enough to survive what you know is impossible to survive. How noble. How utterly futile. Celine's power surged, responding to her emotional turmoil. Silver light crackled around her hands. Get out. Now. Make me little priestess. Cassius's form began to shimmer, dark energy coiling round him like serpents. Show me what you're capable of. Show me if you're worth all this trouble. The corrupted wolves behind him howled a sound that made Celine's bones ache and charged. Everything happened at once. Theron shifted, leaping to intercept the creatures. The pack mobilized, warriors flooding forward to meet the threat, and Celine, standing at the center of it all. felt her power explode outward in a wave of pure moonlight. The corrupted wolves disintegrated where the light touched them, their twisted forms unable to withstand the moon's blessing. But Cassius merely laughed, deflecting her attack with a gesture. Yes, he hissed. Yes, this is what I need. This power. He raised his hands, and darkness shot toward Selene like arrows. She threw up a shield instinctively, but the impact drove her to her knees. The dark magic burned where it touched her light, acid against skin. Selene. Theron's voice roared through the bond. She looked up to see him fighting 3 corrupted wolves at once, unable to reach her. Blood matted his black fur. He was outnumbered, outmatched. And yet he fought like a force of nature, all teeth and claws and desperate fury, fighting for her, dying for her. No. Something inside Selene snapped. She wasn't just the moon priestess. She wasn't just a weapon or a sacrifice. She was Selene, the girl who survived 23 years of abuse, who found strength in darkness, who loved an alpha with silver eyes and a scarred heart. And she would not let him die. Power detonated from her core. But this time it was different. Controlled, precise. She reached through the pack bond, connecting to every wolf, every heartbeat, every soul. With me, she commanded, her voice resonating with ancient authority. The pack responded instantly. Their power flowed into her, and hers flowed back, a circuit of energy that made her feel invincible. She could see through their eyes, feel through their senses, move with their strength. She turned her attention to Cassius, and this time when she struck, the warlock actually staggered. Impossible? He breathed. You shouldn't be able to control that yet. You don't know anything about what I can do, Selene said coldly. Leave now, or I'll show you exactly how impossible I can be. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Cassius's face. Then he smiled, a terrible, knowing smile. Until the full moon, then. He bowed mockingly. Train hard, little priestess. When I return, I'll be bringing an army, and then we'll see if love is stronger than destiny. He vanished in a swirl of shadow, taking the remains of his creatures with him. The silence that followed was deafening. Selene's power receded, leaving her shaking and exhausted. She looked at Theron, who stood in human form now, covered in blood and staring at her with something between awe and anguish. You knew, she said quietly, about the sacrifice. Selene, we need to talk. Now. Chapter 8. The weight of Trutheron's chambers were silent except for the crackling fire. Selene stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself, watching the injured pack members being tended to in the courtyard below. 3 dead, 7 wounded, all because of her. Selene, Theron began. Don't. Her voice was ice. Don't say my name like that. Like you care. Like you didn't just spend the last week preparing me for my own execution. It's not like that. Then what is it like? She whirled to face him. Explain to me how you look me in the eyes. Call me your true mate. Kiss me all while knowing I'm supposed to die. Theron's expression was anguished. Because I'm trying to find another way. I've had every scholar, every elder, every magic user in the pack searching for an alternative. And have they found one? His silence was damning. That's what I thought. Selene laughed bitterly. You know what the cruelest part is? For the first time in my life, I felt like I mattered. Like I was more than the broken, worthless thing everyone said I was. But I'm just another sacrifice, aren't I? Another tool to be used up and discarded. That's not true. Theron crossed the distance between them into strides, gripping her shoulders. You matter more than anything. More than the moon. More than the pack. More than my own life. Then let me go. Tears streamed down Selene's face. If I matter so much, let me leave. Let me run as far as I can before the full moon. You know I can't do that. His grip tightened. Cassius will hunt you to the ends of the earth. And without the pack's protection, without me, his voice broke. He'll do things to you that death would be a mercy from. So what, then? I just accept that I'm going to die into days. That everything I've learned, everything I've become, all of this, she gestured between them, was just a countdown to the end. Theron's hands slid from her shoulders to cup her face. Look at me. When she didn't, he tilted her chin up gently but firmly. Look at me, Celine. She met his silver eyes, and the raw pain in them stole her breath. I have been alpha for 30 years, he said hoarsely. I have made impossible choices, sacrificed my happiness for duty, buried my heart so deep I thought I'd never feel again. And then you walked into my life, this fierce, beautiful, infuriating woman who made me remember what it feels like to hope, to love, to be alive. His thumbs wiped away her tears. You think I would let you die? You think I could survive watching the light go out of your eyes? I would rather rip the moon from the sky myself than lose you. But the prophecy, to hell with the prophecy. The words came out as a growl. Every moment I'm not fighting, I'm searching. There has to be another way. There will be another way. I just need time. We don't have time. Celine pulled away from him, pacing. Cassius returns into days with an army. The moon is bleeding worse every night. And I can feel it. Theron, feel her dying. It's like a wound inside my chest that keeps getting bigger. She pressed her hand to her heart. She's calling to me, begging me to help her. And part of me, her voice dropped to a whisper, part of me wants to give everything I am if it means saving her. Saving all of you. No. Theron was in front of her again, his hands on her arms. Don't you dare sacrifice yourself for us. We don't deserve it. I don't deserve it. Why? Celine searched his face. Why are you so determined to save me when letting me die would save everyone else? Because you're mine. The words exploded from him with such force that Celine felt them in her bones. Because the moon doesn't get to take you. Cassius doesn't get to take you. Death itself doesn't get to take you. You're mine, Celine, and I am selfish enough, cruel enough, broken enough to burn the world rather than let you go. His forehead pressed against hers. So, yes, I lied. I kept the truth from you because I was terrified you'd accept your fate like some noble martyr. That you'd slip through my fingers before I could find a way to keep you. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry. But I'm not sorry for wanting you to live. Celine's anger wavered. She could feel his desperation through their bond, could sense the truth in every word. He wasn't manipulating her. He was drowning, and she was the only lifeline he had. What if there is no other way? She asked quietly. Then we'll make one. He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. Together. How? Theron's jaw set with determination. The prophecy says your life force, channeled through the Alpha's bond, will heal the moon. But it doesn't specify how much life force. What if we could share the burden? Divide the cost between us? You die too. Better than living without you. He said it so simply, so matter-of-factly. That Celine's heart clenched. Theron, the pack needs you. The pack needs both of us. You've proven that. His hand found hers, intertwining their fingers. When you connected to them today, when you channeled the pack bond, I felt it. Felt how you made us stronger together. That's what the priestess does. She doesn't sacrifice herself. She multiplies the pack's power through unity. Celine wanted to believe him. Wanted it so desperately it hurt. What if you're wrong? What if I'm right? He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. What if we're stronger together than any prophecy accounts for? What if love is the variable no one considered? That sounds like wishful thinking. Maybe. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. But wishful thinking is all I have left. That and you. Celine closed her eyes, exhaustion washing over her. The battle, the revelations, the emotional whiplash, it was all catching up. I don't know if I can do this. Yes, you can. Theron's arms wrapped around her, pulling her against his chest. Because you're the strongest person I've ever met. Because you survived 23 years of hell and came out the other side still capable of love. still capable of hope. Because you're Celine, and that means more than any prophecy ever could. She let herself sink into his embrace, breathing in his scent, feeling his heartbeat against her cheek. I'm scared. So am I, the admission rumbled through his chest. But I'm less scared when you're with me. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other as the fire burned low and night deepened outside. Finally, Celine pulled back. I want to see the original prophecy, she said. The actual words. Maybe there's something everyone missed. Hope flickered in Theron's eyes. The archives are in the Elder's library. I'll take you tomorrow. Celine placed her hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat quicken. Tonight, I just want to be with you, not the priestess and the alpha. Just us. Theron's gaze darkened with understanding. Celine, if we do this, if we cross that line, there's no going back. The mate bond will complete. We'll be tied together for life, and if one of us dies, the other feels it. I know. She moved closer, sliding her arms round his neck. I don't care. If I only have 2 days left, I want to spend them living. Really living. With you. You're not going to die, he said fiercely. But his hands were already moving to her waist, pulling her impossibly closer. I won't allow it. Then prove it. She rose on her toes, her lips barely brushing his. Show me what it means to be yours. The last thread of Theron's restraint snapped. He lifted her effortlessly, carrying her toward his bed while claiming her mouth in a kiss that tasted of desperation and promise. As they fell together onto the furs, silver moonlight streaming through the windows, Celine felt something shift deep inside her, the mate bond awakening fully, settling into place like a key in a lock. She was his, he was hers, and whatever came with the dawn, they would face it together. The moon watched through the window, her bleeding surface pulsing with ancient light. And for just a moment, the crimson faded as if even dying divinity could recognize true love when she saw it. 2 days until the full moon, 2 days until everything changed. But tonight was theirs alone. Chapter 9. Ancient Words. New hope dawn broke softly over the compound, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. Celine woke wrapped in Theron's arms, his breathing steady against her hair. The mate bond hummed between them, a living thing now, warm and constant like a second heartbeat in her chest. She could feel everything. His contentment, his protectiveness, and underneath it all, the fear he was trying so hard to hide from her. I can feel you worrying, she murmured against his shoulder. Theron's arms tightened around her. Can't help it. We have 1 day left. Then we'd better make it count. She tilted her head back to look at him. The archives. He nodded, pressing a kiss to her forehead. The archives. An hour later, they stood in the Elder's library, a cavernous room carved into the roots of an ancient oak. Books and scrolls lined every surface, some so old that touching them made Celine nervous. Mira and Kira had joined them, along with Elder Nara, a white-haired woman whose eyes held centuries of wisdom. The original prophecy is here, Nara said, her gnarled hands carefully unrolling a scroll that looked like it might crumble to dust. Written 3,000 years ago by the first moon priestess herself before she disappeared. Celine leaned closer, studying the elegant script. It was written in a language she shouldn't understand, but somehow did the words resonating in her mind like memories. When the moon bleeds crimson and wolves forget their way, the silver-haired daughter will return from shadow. Through the alpha's bond, her light will flow, and the moon shall be made whole. But beware, the price of healing is always blood, and the brightest light casts the darkest shadow. That's it? Mira frowned. It doesn't explicitly say she has to die. No, Theron agreed. But the price of healing is always blood has been interpreted as requiring the priestess's life force. Every scholar who's examined this scroll has reached the same conclusion. What about the last part? Celine asked, touching the parchment gently. The brightest light casts the darkest shadow. What does that mean? Nara's expression grew troubled. We've never been certain. Some believe it's a warning about corruption, that great power can be twisted to darkness. Others think it refers to the priestess herself, that her power contains both creation and destruction. Celine stared at the words, something nagging at the edge of her consciousness. What if it's more literal? What do you mean? Theron moved to stand beside her. Light and shadow aren't opposites, they're connected. One cannot exist without the other. Her mind raced, pieces clicking together. What if the prophecy isn't about sacrifice at all? What if it's about balance? Kira stepped forward. I'm not following. The moon is bleeding, wounded by darkness. Everyone assumes I have to give my life to heal her, to pour all my light into her until there's nothing left. Celine's voice grew stronger. But what if that's wrong? What if I'm not supposed to give her light? I'm supposed to help her balance the darkness within herself. Theron's eyes widened. The corruption. When Cassius tried to steal the pack's connection to the moon, he didn't just fail, he wounded her, infected her with his dark magic. Exactly. Celine turned to face them all. You can't heal an infection by adding more healthy tissue. You have to remove the poison first. The moon doesn't need me to die for her, she needs me to fight for her, to burn away the darkness Cassius left behind. Nera's hands trembled. In all my years, no one has interpreted it that way. But she looked at Celine with something like awe. It makes sense. The priestess isn't a sacrifice. She's a warrior. Can you do that? Mira asked. Fight darkness on that scale? Celine thought of the power that lived inside her, growing stronger every day. She thought of the pack bond, the way she could channel their collective strength. And she thought of Theron, her mate, her anchor, her reason to survive. I think so, she said. But I can't do it alone. I'll need the pack's strength. And she looked at Theron. I'll need you. Your bond is the conduit. If we do this together, if we fight the darkness together, we might both survive. He finished, hope blazing in his silver eyes. Celine, if you're right, it's risky, Nara warned. Facing that much corruption could consume you both. And if Cassius attacks while you're vulnerable, then the pack defends us, Theron said firmly. We've faced impossible odds before. Not like this. Kira's expression was grim. Cassius said he's bringing an army. Our forces are already depleted from yesterday's attack. Theron's jaw clenched. Then we call in our allies. Every pack within 100 miles. If Cassius wants war, we'll give him one. That could take hours, Mira protested. The full moon rises at sunset. Then we start now. Theron's voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Kira, send runners to the neighboring packs. Tell them the Alpha calls in every debt, every alliance, every oath of loyalty. Mira, prepare the compound for siege. Nara, I need every combat-capable wolf armed and ready. They scattered to their tasks, leaving Celine alone with Theron. He pulled her into his arms, and she felt his fear spike through the bond. Hey, she said softly, we're going to survive this. You sound so certain. I am. She pressed her hand over his heart. Because I finally understand what I am. I'm not just the moon's priestess. I'm not just your mate. I'm the bridge, Theron, between light and dark, human and wolf, death and life. And bridges don't break, they hold. Theron's laugh was shaky. When did you become so wise? About the time I fell in love with an overprotective alpha who refuses to let me die. She rose on her toes, kissing him gently. We're going to win this. Together. He rested his forehead against hers. Together, he echoed. I'm holding you to that. The hours that followed were a blur of preparation. Wolves arrived from surrounding territories some Celine recognized. Many she didn't. The compound transformed into a fortress. Every advantage fortified, every weakness shored up dot, and through it all, Celine felt the moon calling to her. The pull was stronger now, insistent, like a mother reaching for her child. She stood on the wall as sunset approached, watching the sky darken, watching the wounded moon begin to rise. Theron appeared at her side. fully armored now, every inch the warrior alpha. But when he looked at her, his eyes were soft. Last chance to run, he said, only half joking. Celine took his hand. Where you go, I go. That's what mates do, right? That's what mates do, he agreed. Are you ready? She looked out at the forest, where she could already sense darkness gathering. Cassius was coming, bringing his corruption and twisted magic. The final battle was upon them. No, she admitted, but I'm going anyway. Theron smiled fierce and proud. That's my girl. The moon rose fully, staining the sky crimson. And from the forest, a howl rose, not wolf, but something far more terrible. The sound of it made Celine's blood run cold. He's here, Theron said quietly. The compound erupted into organized chaos. Wolves took positions. Warriors unsheathed weapons. And in the distance, emerging from the trees like a living nightmare, Cassius's army appeared. Hundreds of them. Twisted wolves, corrupted humans, and things that defied description. All of them radiating the same oily darkness that had infected the moon. At their head walked Cassius himself, his too pale skin almost glowing in the moonlight. When his eyes found Celine on the wall, he smiled. Last chance, little priestess. His voice carried impossibly far. Come willingly, and I'll make your death painless. Resist, and I'll make everyone you love suffer first. Celine stepped forward, power already gathering in her hands. Silver light crackled around her fingers, bright enough to push back the darkness. I've got a better offer, she called back. Leave now, and I'll make sure you die quickly. Stay, and I'll show you what happens when you threaten my family. Cassius's laugh echoed across the battlefield. Family? You've known these beasts for a week. Long enough, Celine replied, feeling the pack bond pulse to life around her. Long enough to love them. Long enough to fight for them. Long enough to die for them if I have to. She looked at Theron, their eyes meeting in perfect understanding. But I'm really hoping it doesn't come to that. Theron's answering grin was all teeth. He threw back his head and howled a sound of challenge and defiance. That was picked up by every wolf in the compound. The battle cry shook the earth. Cassius's smile faded. He raised his hand, and darkness coalesced around him. So be it, he hissed. Let's see if love truly is stronger than death. He dropped his hand, and the war began.